Hello guys, Omni here. Just got back from seeing Underwater, directed by William Eubank. This movie stars Kristen, Stewart, Vincent, Cassel, Jessica Henwick, John Gallagher Jr., Mamoudou, Athie, and TJ Miller, following a group of scientists working at a research facility housed at the base of an underwater deep sea drilling rig. What the crew seems to think is a earthquake causes a hull breach in the facility, turns into a fight for survival as the water encroaches in, the pressure builds, and the facility collapses upon itself as our team tries to get back and fight their way and find a plan to get back to the surface. As they learn throughout their little journey, and as we saw in the trailers, maybe it wasn't an earthquake, but something a little more alive down there with them. This movie has a lot of vibes of a lot of movies that kind of I really enjoy. It definitely gave me a sense of Cloverfield kind of tones, especially that since that also had TJ Miller in there as well as definitely some hints of Alien when I was going through this. This movie was, for being dumped in January, it is a 20th Century Fox film, so Disney probably just had no idea what to do with this. As I just found out earlier after doing a little bit of research on the movie, that production on it actually started back in 2017, and it's only just now releasing. So I wonder how long they've kind of been sitting on this film. But that being said, honestly, aside from 1917, which I guess you could technically argue that came out on the 25th of December, though the wide release didn't happen until January. It's not a true January release, so if you consider everything that's come out in January so far, this movie was actually a fairly confident film. It definitely has its flaws. It is not what you would typically expect out of a January release, at least. You'd expect things more like The Grudge, and if you want my thoughts on that movie, I'll summarize my opinion if you don't want to go back and check out my review. It had moving pictures, so it qualified as a film. But I think this movie has some really strong points. There was a lot of tension. There was a lot of really good sequences. It definitely feels dated in the way that it definitely feels like a movie that wouldn't have come out in 2019 or 2020, from what I can gather. It definitely feels like a 2017, maybe even earlier kind of film, with some of the ways that the editing is cut together. There's some slow-mo kind of fast to slow-mo sequences that feels like very early 2000s to me as well. But as far as that putting that aside, I think all the performances in this movie were really fantastic, especially Kristen Stewart and Vincent Cassel. Those two really kind of sold it all. And Jessica Henwick really did a great job in this as well, though she doesn't get nearly as much screen time as those other two. It's nice seeing her getting a little bit of work here after the cancellation of the Marvel television Netflix series shows, since she was main lead in Iron Fist. Nice seeing her getting out there again, and I hope that continues to grow. I really want to see a lot of those people kind of continue to get some fantastic work, because everybody involved in a lot of those shows were just great. Everybody else in this, I feel like everybody in this movie fits in except for TJ Miller. TJ Miller just plays the same character in every movie I've ever seen him in, and he does it again in this. He gives me the vibes of the same character he played in Cloverfield. He's just TJ Miller thrown into wacky situations where he's just got to comment on them. And sometimes it works, sometimes it got a giggle out of me, but other times I'm just like, who hired this guy and why is he down here? But that being said, everybody else was fantastic. The tension in this was really great. The effects, for the most part, was really good. Aside from some of the pacing and the editing, the movie itself is only an hour and 30 minutes long, give or take. But watching it, something about the pacing made it feel so much longer than it was. Maybe it's because the movie really takes its time with them trying to problem solve. Because as they're trying to get their way back to the surface, it's really just solving one problem after the other. This fight for survival with this crew of highly intelligent people, and they are working to figure out how to survive. And that's really the strongest thing about this movie. Really doesn't linger a whole lot to allow the characters to kind of drive the story along. We get little hints and tidbits of their backstories, what might be the driving factor for them. Some of them on some of the downtime they get to open up a little bit, but not too much. The movie is really about the mission at hand, the survival aspect of it. And in that way, it definitely feels very Alien, especially with them being in complete utter isolation. Instead of space, it is just the deep depths of the ocean where it's pitch black. There's pretty much no calling out for help. And it gets pretty intense. And I for one, having a phobia of the ocean, it definitely helped with this movie being very effective. But towards the end, it definitely goes into more of a Cloverfield kind of route. Not to get too spoiler, we see we see a small hint of the creatures that are looming at the bottom of the ocean there in the trailers, and we get a. It's not really much like with an Alien. It's very lightly sprinkled in throughout the movie as it paces along, as it progresses. Things get exponentially worse as they would. This movie is very reminiscent of a lot of other movies. The movie doesn't really do a whole lot of things original, I would say. It's just a very competent movie, kind of recycling a bunch of elements that we've seen a lot in this kind of genre of film, if you want to call it. It's very competent. It's well shot, well acted. The only complaint I have is, like I said, with the editing of the movie. I think there's sometimes where the editing kind of gives you a little bit of a headache. And sometimes it just like, I feel like it's a little too engrossed with itself. I think if you see the movie, you can kind of get where I'm coming from with that, with the slow-mo and some of the holding shots that they do on it. But overall, I think it was a pretty good movie. I think this isn't a movie that I'm going to tell you to go rush out to the theater and see. If you can go out and catch a matinee, definitely try it. This might be like a wait to see it like on Netflix, Amazon Prime, whatever streaming services is probably going to end up on here in the next couple of months. But I don't know. It's a pretty good movie. If it looks like it catches your attention enough, sure, go check it out. I'm not going to tell you not to go see it. But it is, I think there's no reason to rush to the theater to check this one out. I don't think it being on a movie screen, as far as the experience goes, necessarily elevates this much. I always prefer the theater experience versus the in-home experience, but I feel like for this movie, I think you would get the same effect either way. Being in the large screen, the enclosed darkness, and this surround sound didn't really do much to really elevate the film to me. So if you've got nothing else to see, you want to go check out a movie, I definitely recommend this over The Grudge. My recommendation of anything out right now in January currently, just to go see 1917. That movie is fantastic and it blows all of these out of the water. But as far as true January releases so far, this is definitely the best one that we've got so far. So we'll see. We got a couple movies coming out here shortly. We'll be covering those and talking about those as they come out. So keep an eye out for those reviews. But this one, honestly, probably wait for it. That'd be that's my vote at the end of the day on this. So if you've seen the movie, I want to know your thoughts. Sound off in the comments. We'll carry on that conversation and we'll have that after the video. And if you like this video, support the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.